My name is Sarah Mitchell, and 6 months ago, I watched my boss destroy what she believed was just another employee's mediocre project. She stood in front of our entire marketing team at Henderson & Associates in downtown Chicago, held up my laptop, and announced that my 18 months of work was amateur garbage that embarrasses this company. Then, while 37 colleagues watched in horrified silence, she dragged my project files to the digital trash and permanently deleted everything. What she didn't know was that she had just erased the secret weapon that was about to land our agency, the biggest client in its 40-year history. A $3.2 million account that would have saved jobs, secured bonuses, and transformed our struggling agency into an industry powerhouse. And the phone call I received 48 hours later would turn her moment of cruel triumph into the beginning of her complete professional destruction. But before I tell you how watching her panic became the most satisfying revenge I never had to plan, let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. Because what happened that day wasn't just workplace bullying. It was the systematic destruction of someone who had given everything to a company that was about to throw her away like yesterday's coffee grounds. 18 months earlier, I had joined Henderson & Associates as their new digital strategy coordinator. The position seemed perfect, a mid-size advertising agency in Chicago's Loop District, working with local businesses and regional brands. The salary was decent. The office overlooked the Chicago River, and my new supervisor, Victoria Hawthorne, had an impressive reputation in the advertising world. Victoria was one of those women who had climbed the corporate ladder through sheer intimidation. She wore power suits like armor, spoke in clipped sentences that left no room for discussion, and treated every conversation like a boardroom negotiation she was determined to win. During my first week, she made it crystal clear that she viewed new hires as potential threats to be controlled rather than team members to be developed. In this industry, she told me during my initial one-on-one meeting, results matter more than feelings. Clients don't care about your creative process or your personal investment. They want campaigns that move products and generate revenue. Everything else is self-indulgent waste. What I discovered in those early weeks was an agency desperately struggling to stay relevant in a rapidly changing digital landscape. Our client roster was shrinking quarterly. 3 major accounts had terminated their contracts in the past year, citing outdated approaches and lack of digital innovation. The remaining clients were constantly threatening to take their business elsewhere if we couldn't prove we understood modern marketing strategies. But I saw opportunity where others saw crisis. While reviewing our client files and past campaigns, I noticed something that everyone else had missed. Our agency's strength wasn't in flashy creative concepts or cutting-edge technology. It was in our deep understanding of local markets and authentic community connections. We just weren't leveraging that advantage effectively. So I started working on something that would change everything. A comprehensive digital transformation strategy that I called the Heartland Project. It wasn't just another marketing proposal. It was a complete reimagining of how regional agencies could compete with big city firms by embracing what made them unique. The Heartland Project consumed every spare moment of my life for the next 18 months. While my colleagues left at 5:30, I stayed until 9 or 10, researching demographic trends, analyzing successful regional campaigns, and developing frameworks that could revolutionize how we approached client relationships. The core concept was deceptively simple. Instead of trying to copy what New York and Los Angeles agencies were doing, we would become the premier specialists in authentic Midwest marketing. We would help brands connect with heartland values, community pride, and the genuine relationships that drove purchasing decisions in markets like ours. I studied every successful local business in our region, identifying patterns in how they built customer loyalty. I analyzed social media engagement rates, community event participation, and seasonal buying behaviors specific to our geographic area. I interviewed local business owners, community leaders, and longtime residents about what messaging actually resonated with them versus what felt like generic corporate manipulation. The research phase alone took 6 months. Victoria would walk past my desk during those late evenings and see me surrounded by printed reports, demographic charts, and handwritten notes covering every available surface. She never asked what I was working on, but I could feel her disapproval, radiating across the office space. During our monthly performance reviews, she would flip through my regular project reports with visible impatience. "Your billable hours are acceptable," she would say, tapping her pen against her leather portfolio. "But I'm concerned about your focus. I see you staying late working on non-client projects. This company pays you to serve existing accounts, not to pursue personal research interests." I tried explaining that my research was directly related to improving our client services, that I was developing strategies that could help us win new business and better serve existing accounts. But Victoria only cared about immediate, measurable outputs that fit her traditional advertising model. What she didn't understand was that I was building something that could save our agency from the slow decline that everyone could see, but no one wanted to acknowledge. Our competitors were winning clients by offering sophisticated digital strategies and data-driven insights. We were losing ground because we were still operating like it was 2010, relying on outdated approaches that felt increasingly irrelevant to modern businesses. The breakthrough came during month 8 of my research. I was analyzing successful campaigns from similar regional agencies when I noticed something remarkable. The most successful firms weren't trying to compete with major markets on sophistication or budget. They were winning by becoming experts in their specific regions, developing reputations as the go-to agencies for brands that wanted to connect authentically with local audiences. That insight became the foundation for everything that followed. I spent the next 10 months developing detailed frameworks, case studies, pricing models, and implementation strategies. The Heartland Project grew into a comprehensive business transformation plan that could position Henderson & Associates as the premier regional agency in the Midwest. Wasn't just creating marketing strategies. I was documenting a complete business philosophy that could help regional agencies thrive in competitive markets. I developed client acquisition templates, pricing frameworks, staff training protocols, and measurement systems. Everything an agency would need to implement authentic regional marketing approaches. The final Heartland Project document was 247 pages of research, analysis, and actionable strategies. It included detailed case studies from successful regional campaigns, step-by-step implementation guides, client communication templates, and revenue projection models. I had essentially created a blueprint for transforming struggling regional agencies into specialists who could charge premium prices for their unique market expertise. Quick favor before we continue. If you're finding this story as gripping, as I hope, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. What happens next shows how one moment of workplace cruelty can backfire in the most spectacular way possible. Trust me, you don't want to miss how this unfolds. I was incredibly proud of that work. It represented not just 18 months of research and development, but a potential solution to the problems that were slowly killing our agency. I had documented proof that regional specialization could generate higher profit margins than generic and services, attract clients who valued authentic local connections, and create competitive advantages that major agencies couldn't replicate. Which made what happened next feel like watching someone burn down a bridge while you're still standing on it. The opportunity I had been preparing for arrived on a Tuesday morning in late September. Marcus Weatherby, CEO of Great Lakes Manufacturing, called our office requesting a proposal for their complete marketing transformation. Great Lakes was a $50 million company based in Milwaukee, looking to expand throughout the Midwest while maintaining their reputation for quality and community involvement. It was exactly the type of client the Heartland Project was designed to serve. A successful, regional company that wanted to grow without losing the authentic local connections that had built their reputation. They needed an agency that understood Heartland values, regional market dynamics, and how to scale community-focused messaging across multiple locations. When Victoria announced that Great Lakes Manufacturing had requested a proposal presentation, I knew this was the moment I had been working toward for 18 months. Everything in the Heartland project was perfectly aligned with their stated needs. I had researched companies exactly like theirs, developed strategies specifically for their type of expansion, and created frameworks that could demonstrate measurable ROI for authentic regional marketing approaches. I requested a meeting with Victoria to discuss my ideas for the Great Lakes proposal. I explained that I had been developing specialized strategies for exactly this type of client, that I had extensive research on regional marketing approaches, and that I believed we could create a proposal that would differentiate us from every other agency they were considering. Victoria's response was immediate and dismissive. "Sarah, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but Great Lakes Manufacturing is a major opportunity that requires senior-level strategy development. This isn't the type of account where we experiment with untested approaches or let junior staff members drive the creative process." She had already assigned the proposal to Marcus Webb, our creative director, and Jennifer Stevens, our senior account manager. Both were talented professionals, but they had no experience with the type of regional specialization that Great Lakes was seeking. They would create a competent but generic proposal that looked like every other agency presentation the client would receive. I tried to explain that my research was directly relevant to Great Lakes' needs, that I had documented strategies for exactly their type of regional expansion, and that we had an opportunity to present something genuinely unique instead of another standard agency pitch. "Sarah," Victoria interrupted, her voice carrying that familiar edge of controlled impatience. "Your job is digital strategy coordination, not business development. Marcus and Jennifer are handling this proposal because they have the experience and judgment required for high-stakes presentations. Your role is to support their efforts if they request your assistance." I spent the next 2 weeks watching Marcus and Jennifer develop exactly the type of conventional proposal I had expected. Professional layouts, generic messaging about leveraging synergies and maximizing brand potential, standard service packages that could have been presented to any client in any industry. There was nothing wrong with their work, but there was nothing distinctive about it either. Meanwhile, I continued refining the Heartland project, adding specific strategies that could address Great Lakes Manufacturing's expansion challenges. I developed detailed analyses of their target markets, communication frameworks for maintaining authentic local connections while scaling operations, and pricing models that could demonstrate clear value for specialized regional expertise. The morning of our presentation to Great Lakes Manufacturing, Jennifer called in sick with what sounded like severe food poisoning. Marcus arrived at the office looking stressed and overwhelmed, realizing that he would have to deliver a 2-hour presentation designed for 2 people while representing our agency's biggest opportunity in years. Victoria made the decision that would change everything. Rather than postponing the presentation or asking one of our other senior staff members to step in, she decided that I would accompany Marcus as Jennifer's replacement. "You know the digital components better than anyone else," she told me. "Just follow Marcus's lead and handle any technical questions about online strategy." But when we arrived at Great Lakes Manufacturing's conference room, Marcus discovered that he had left half of his presentation materials back at the office. In the rush to reorganize without Jennifer, he had grabbed the wrong portfolio and was missing crucial slides about market analysis and expansion strategies. The presentation that had been carefully choreographed for 2 people was falling apart before we had even begun. Marcus looked at me with something approaching panic in his eyes. We were sitting across from 5 Great Lakes executives, including CEO Marcus Weatherby himself, and our carefully planned presentation was dissolving into chaos. "Do you have anything that might help?" he whispered desperately. I did. I had the Heartland project on my laptop, 18 months of research and strategy development that was perfectly suited for exactly this moment. But using it would mean going against Victoria's explicit instructions to support Marcus's approach rather than presenting my own ideas. Looking at Marcus's panicked expression, then at the expectant faces of Great Lakes executives who had taken time out of their schedules to hear our proposal, I made the decision that would ultimately destroy my relationship with Victoria and transform the trajectory of my entire career. "I have some materials that might be relevant," I told Marcus quietly. "Would you like me to supplement your presentation with regional marketing strategies?" What happened in that conference room over the next 2 hours was the most professionally satisfying experience of my life. When I opened the Heartland Project files and began presenting my research on authentic regional marketing, I watched 5 executives shift from polite attention to genuine engagement to obvious excitement about what they were hearing. I showed them demographic analyses specific to their target markets, case studies from successful regional expansions, communication strategies for maintaining local authenticity while scaling operations, and revenue projection models that demonstrated clear ROI for specialized approaches. Everything I had been developing for 18 months was perfectly aligned with their expansion challenges. Marcus Weatherby himself interrupted my presentation after 40 minutes. "This is exactly what we've been looking for," he said, leaning forward in his chair. "Every other agency has pitched us generic growth strategies. You're the first people who understand that our strength isn't just our products, it's our connection to heartland values and community relationships." By the end of the presentation, Great Lakes Manufacturing wasn't just interested in hiring Henderson and Associates. They were excited about implementing a comprehensive regional specialization strategy that could differentiate them from competitors while maintaining the authentic local connections that had built their reputation. Marcus Weatherby requested copies of my research materials, asked detailed questions about implementation timelines, and mentioned that they had been struggling to find an agency that understood their unique position in the market. "Most firms want to transform us into something we're not," he explained. "You're showing us how to become a better version of what we already are." The meeting ended with Great Lakes requesting a detailed proposal based on my Heartland Project strategies, with preliminary discussions about a 3-year contract worth approximately $3.2 million in total billing. It was the largest potential account in Henderson and Associates history. Marcus Webb was stunned. During our drive back to the office, he kept repeating how impressed Great Lakes had been with my presentation, how perfectly my research aligned with their needs, and how confident he felt about winning the account. "Where did you develop all of that material?" he asked. "I had no idea you were working on regional specialization strategies." I explained about the Heartland Project, how I had been researching regional marketing approaches for 18 months, and how everything I had presented was designed specifically for clients like Great Lakes Manufacturing. Marcus was amazed that I had been working on such comprehensive strategies without any official assignment or recognition from Victoria. "You realize this could completely transform our agency," he said as we pulled into the parking garage. "If we win Great Lakes with this approach, we could position ourselves as the premier regional specialists in the Midwest. This could be the beginning of something huge." I was excited, but also nervous about Victoria's reaction. I had essentially presented my own strategic framework instead of supporting Marcus's original proposal. Even though the presentation had been incredibly successful, I had deviated from Victoria's explicit instructions about my role in the meeting. When we returned to the office, Victoria was waiting in the conference room with an expression that immediately told me she had already heard about what happened. Marcus had apparently called ahead to share the good news about our successful presentation, and Victoria was not pleased about the way events had unfolded. "I understand that you took it upon yourself to present unauthorized materials during the Great Lakes meeting," she said, her voice carrying that familiar edge of controlled anger, "despite my clear instructions about your role in supporting Marcus's presentation." I tried to explain the circumstances: Jennifer's absence, Marcus's missing materials, the need to adapt quickly to salvage our presentation opportunity. But Victoria wasn't interested in explanations. She was focused on what she perceived as my deliberate insubordination and unprofessional behavior. "Your job was to handle technical questions, not to present your own strategic frameworks," she continued. Regardless of how the client responded, you violated clear instructions and overstepped your authority in a high-stakes situation. The confrontation that followed would haunt me for months. Victoria demanded copies of all materials I had presented to Great Lakes, insisting that any strategic frameworks developed during company time belonged to Henderson and Associates and should have been cleared through proper channels before being shared with clients. When I provided her with the Heartland Project files, she spent 20 minutes scrolling through 18 months of research and strategy development with an expression that shifted from anger to something approaching shock. She was seeing for the first time the comprehensive nature of what I had been working on during those late evenings when she thought I was wasting time on personal research interests. "This is extensive," she said finally, her voice carefully neutral. "When did you develop all of this material?" I explained the timeline. 18 months of research, analysis, and strategy development that I had completed in addition to my regular responsibilities. I emphasized that Great Lakes Manufacturing was exactly the type of client the Heartland Project was designed to serve, and that our successful presentation had demonstrated the potential value of regional specialization strategies. Victoria's response would change everything between us forever. Instead of recognizing the value of my work or acknowledging that my strategies had potentially won us our biggest client ever, she became fixated on what she viewed as my unauthorized use of company resources and unprofessional violation of reporting protocols. "Sarah," she said, closing my laptop with a decisive snap, "you've created a significant problem that goes far beyond today's presentation. What Victoria did next will haunt me for the rest of my career. Not because it was personally devastating, but because it revealed a level of professional cruelty that I had never imagined possible from someone in a leadership position." She scheduled an emergency department meeting for the following morning, announcing that we needed to discuss proper protocols for strategic development and client presentation standards. I assumed she was planning to address the confusion around my role in the Great Lakes presentation and establish clearer guidelines for future situations. Instead, she orchestrated my public humiliation in front of every person I had worked alongside for 18 months. When our entire marketing team assembled in the main conference room, 37 colleagues, including junior staff, senior managers, and visiting consultants from our partner agencies, Victoria announced that my presentation to Great Lakes Manufacturing represented a serious violation of professional standards. "What happened yesterday," she declared, standing at the front of the room while I sat in stunned silence, "demonstrates exactly the kind of unauthorized initiative that undermines our agency's reputation and client relationships." She connected my laptop to the main conference screen and began displaying the Heartland Project materials while describing my 18 months of research as unauthorized resource usage and unprofessional boundary violations. Every strategy I had developed, every analysis I had completed, every framework I had created was being presented to my colleagues as evidence of poor judgment and inappropriate behavior. This type of individual initiative creates unrealistic client expectations and compromises our ability to deliver consistent service standards, Victoria continued, clicking through months of careful documentation. Strategic development must follow established protocols and receive proper authorization before being shared with clients. I felt heat spreading across my chest as 37 people watched her systematically tear apart work that had potentially won us a $3.2 million account. She was presenting my greatest professional accomplishment as a cautionary tale about what happens when employees exceed their authority and pursue unauthorized projects. But then Victoria crossed a line that transformed professional criticism into personal destruction. She opened the file containing my complete Heartland Project database. 18 months of research, analysis, strategic frameworks, implementation guides, client communication templates, and revenue projection models that represented the most comprehensive work of my career. This entire approach represents exactly the kind of unfocused effort that dilutes our service quality, she announced, her cursor hovering over the delete command. Beginning today, we return to established strategic development protocols that ensure consistent standards across all client interactions. And then she clicked delete. I watched 18 months of work disappear from the screen while 37 colleagues sat in absolute silence, clearly uncomfortable with what they were witnessing, but unable to intervene in what was obviously a calculated act of professional destruction. Victoria turned away from the screen with an expression of satisfied vindication, clearly expecting me to accept this humiliation and rebuild my work according to her approved methods. The silence in the conference room was suffocating as everyone processed what had just happened. But Victoria had made one crucial miscalculation. While she was destroying my documentation, she wasn't destroying the actual value that the Heartland Project represented. The research insights, strategic frameworks, and specialized knowledge that had impressed Great Lakes Manufacturing still existed in my mind and experience, even if the files had been deleted from our company's servers. My phone started buzzing before Victoria finished explaining her new strategic development protocols. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the voice on the other end would transform everything about my professional future. Sarah Mitchell? The caller said. This is David Chen from Midwest Marketing Solutions. We've been following your work with regional specialization strategies, and we'd like to discuss an immediate opportunity that we think will interest you. The conversation that followed revealed something that Victoria had never suspected. While she was focused on controlling my work and maintaining her authority over strategic development, other people in our industry had been paying attention to the innovative approaches I was developing. Word travels fast in professional communities, and several agencies had noticed the unique frameworks I was creating for authentic regional marketing. We're prepared to offer you a senior partnership position with complete autonomy over regional specialization development, David continued. $200,000 annual salary plus equity participation with full authority to build the type of strategies you've been developing. We believe authentic regional marketing is the future of our industry, and we want you to lead that transformation with us. $200,000, nearly double my current compensation, working for people who valued exactly what Victoria considered unauthorized waste of company resources. But the most beautiful part of their offer wasn't the money or the professional recognition. We know you can't bring proprietary materials from Henderson and Associates, David explained. But we also know that specialized knowledge and strategic insight can't be deleted from someone's experience. If you choose to join us and develop new frameworks based on your expertise, that represents a natural evolution of your professional capabilities. When I walked back into the conference room, Victoria was still lecturing about proper authorization protocols, while my former colleagues stared at their notebooks, clearly disturbed by what they had witnessed. She noticed my return and paused her presentation with visible irritation. Do you have questions about our revised strategic development procedures? She asked, her tone suggesting that questions would not be welcome. I looked around the room at people I had worked beside for 18 months, then at the blank screen where my life's work had been displayed before being destroyed, then back at Victoria's expectant expression. Actually, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system, I have an announcement to make. What happened next would become the most satisfying moment of my professional life, not because I had planned some elaborate revenge, but because Victoria's own actions had created the perfect opportunity for natural consequences to unfold with devastating precision. I'm resigning from Henderson and Associates effective immediately, I announced, my voice carrying clearly across the silent conference room. I'll be joining Midwest Marketing Solutions as senior partner for regional strategy development. The silence that followed was profound. You could hear the ventilation system humming and someone's pen clicking nervously against their notebook. Victoria's expression shifted from confident authority to confusion, then to something that looked almost like panic. You can't just quit in the middle of a department meeting, she stammered, clearly thrown by this unexpected development. There are protocols, notice requirements, transition procedures that must be followed. Actually, I replied, pulling out my phone to show the partnership offer I had just accepted. My employment agreement allows for immediate resignation in cases of hostile work environment or public humiliation. Having my work deleted in front of colleagues while being professionally degraded qualifies under both conditions. James Morrison, our agency director who had been quietly observing from the back of the room, stepped forward with obvious concern. Perhaps we should discuss this privately before making any hasty decisions that might be difficult to reverse. But I was finished with private discussions and diplomatic solutions. Victoria had chosen to humiliate me publicly, so she would experience the consequences just as publicly. There's nothing to discuss, I said, gathering my personal items from the conference table. My decision is final, and I'll submit formal resignation paperwork within the hour. As I walked toward the exit, I could feel 37 pairs of eyes following my movement. Some colleagues looked shocked, others appeared impressed, and several seemed to be reconsidering their own career satisfaction. Victoria called after me, her voice higher than usual and carrying a note of desperation that everyone in the room could hear. "You're making a catastrophic mistake," she declared. "Midwest Marketing Solutions is a small firm with no established reputation. You're throwing away job security and advancement opportunities for some fantasy about regional specialization being more valuable than proven strategic approaches." I paused at the doorway and turned back to face her one final time. "We'll see which approach proves more valuable," I said quietly. "Great Lakes Manufacturing will make that determination very clearly." Within 24 hours, I had cleaned out my desk, completed exit interviews, and started my new position at Midwest Marketing Solutions. Their office was smaller than Henderson & Associates, but filled with energy and excitement about building innovative marketing strategies that could transform how regional agencies competed in national markets. More importantly, I was finally working with people who understood that my 18 months of research represented valuable intellectual property that could generate significant revenue when properly developed and marketed. They weren't interested in controlling my work or limiting my strategic thinking. They wanted to amplify both and build a business around the expertise I had developed. But the real validation of my decision came in the weeks that followed. As I watched the natural consequences of Victoria's actions unfold with perfect precision. I hadn't stolen clients or violated any confidentiality agreements. I simply continued developing the same type of specialized strategies that had impressed Great Lakes Manufacturing, now with complete professional support and resources. The first call came on Thursday morning, just 3 days after I started. At Midwest Marketing Solutions, Marcus Weatherby from Great Lakes Manufacturing contacted my new office directly. "Sarah," he said, "we heard through industry contacts that you've moved to a new firm. We wanted to congratulate you and discuss how this might affect our upcoming project discussions." That conversation lasted 2 hours and ended with Great Lakes requesting a comprehensive proposal from Midwest Marketing Solutions based on the regional specialization strategies I had presented during our original meeting. The $3.2 million account that would have transformed Henderson & Associates was now following me to a firm that valued innovative thinking over bureaucratic control. The second call came that same afternoon from Jennifer Martinez, Marketing Director at Prairie Home Foods, a regional manufacturer that had been considering proposals from several agencies. She had heard about my work through professional networks and wanted to discuss her company's expansion plans with someone who understood authentic heartland marketing approaches. By the end of my first week at Midwest Marketing Solutions, I had received calls from 4 companies that were specifically seeking the type of regional specialization strategies I had developed. Not because I had recruited them, but because word travels quickly in professional communities when someone demonstrates genuine expertise in solving problems that other agencies couldn't address. Meanwhile, back at Henderson & Associates, Victoria was discovering what she had actually deleted when she destroyed the Heartland project in front of our entire department. According to former colleagues who maintained contact with me, She had attempted to proceed with the Great Lakes manufacturing proposal using Marcus Webb's original materials, the same generic strategies that had been inadequate during our presentation. Great Lakes politely declined to move forward with Henderson and Associates, explaining that they had found an agency whose regional specialization approach better aligned with their expansion goals. They didn't mention my name specifically, but they made it clear that they were seeking the type of innovative strategies that Victoria had publicly dismissed as unauthorized waste of company resources. Within 3 weeks of my departure, Henderson and Associates had lost not only the Great Lakes account, but 2 other potential clients who had heard about regional specialization approaches through industry networks and decided to work with firms that offered those capabilities. Victoria's systematic destruction of my work had eliminated their competitive advantage in exactly the market segment that was driving agency growth throughout the Midwest. The 3rd week after my departure brought the most revealing conversation of all. Marcus Webb called me directly, not for business reasons, but to share what was happening inside Henderson and Associates since my resignation. "Sarah, I think you should know what's going on here," he said, his voice quiet with concern. "Victoria is in full panic mode. She's trying to recreate your Heartland project using freelance consultants and external research firms, but she doesn't understand what made your approach actually work." He explained that Victoria had spent over $40,000 in the past 3 weeks hiring consultants to develop regional specialization strategies, but everything they produced felt generic and disconnected from the authentic insights that had made my work valuable. "She keeps asking us to make their research more like what Sarah presented, but she deleted all your materials, so we can't even show them what she means." The irony was devastating. Victoria was now desperately trying to rebuild exactly what she had destroyed, but without understanding that authentic expertise couldn't be purchased or quickly assembled from external sources. The specialized knowledge that had taken me 18 months to develop through careful research and genuine community engagement couldn't be replicated by consultants who had never invested in understanding regional market dynamics. 2 months after leaving Henderson and Associates, I received a call that completed the perfect circle of natural consequences that Victoria had created through her own actions. James Morrison, the agency director who had witnessed my resignation, contacted me personally to discuss what he diplomatically described as a strategic partnership opportunity. Henderson and Associates was struggling with client acquisition in the regional specialization market that they had once been positioned to dominate. They were losing accounts to agencies that offered authentic Heartland marketing approaches, and their traditional strategies were increasingly viewed as outdated by the clients they most wanted to attract. "We're prepared to offer you a senior director position with complete autonomy over regional strategy development," James explained during our conversation. "Significant salary increase, equity participation, and full authority to rebuild the capabilities that we've identified as crucial for our competitive positioning." The irony was breathtaking. 2 months after watching my work get deleted in front of my colleagues, I was being recruited back to implement exactly the same approaches at a much higher salary with complete control over the department that had rejected my contributions, but I had no interest in returning to work for people who had only learned to value my expertise after losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential revenue. "I appreciate the offer," I told James, "but I'm very satisfied with my current position. Midwest Marketing Solutions recognized the value of regional specialization strategies from the beginning, rather than having to learn through crisis." 6 months after leaving Henderson and Associates, I was promoted to managing partner at Midwest Marketing Solutions, with equity participation and responsibility for expanding our regional specialization services across multiple market segments. The clients who had followed my expertise became the foundation for our most successful year in company history. Great Lakes Manufacturing's regional expansion campaign, built entirely on Heartland Project principles, generated a 340% increase in brand recognition across their target markets and established them as the premier community-focused manufacturer in the Midwest. Their success became a case study that attracted 12 additional clients who wanted similar authentic regional positioning strategies. Meanwhile, Henderson and Associates underwent what James Morrison had euphemistically called strategic restructuring. They eliminated 15 positions, reduced their office space, and ultimately merged with a larger agency that specialized in traditional marketing approaches. Victoria was not retained during the merger. I learned about her departure through LinkedIn updates and professional network conversations. According to former colleagues, she had spent her final months at Henderson and Associates attempting to rebuild regional specialization capabilities using consultants and freelancers, never understanding that authentic expertise couldn't be purchased or quickly assembled from external sources. The last information I heard about Victoria's situation came through a mutual professional contact who mentioned that she was having difficulty finding comparable leadership positions. Potential employers were understandably concerned about hiring someone whose management approach had contributed to significant client losses and staff departures, especially in an industry where talent retention and innovative thinking were increasingly valued over bureaucratic control. I felt no satisfaction in hearing about her career difficulties. My fulfillment came from knowing that the principles she had mocked and destroyed were now recognized throughout our industry as essential for sustainable competitive advantage. Every successful regional agency was investing in authentic specialization strategies. Every professional development program emphasized the importance of innovative thinking over rigid protocol adherence. Victoria had been wrong about the value of creative initiative, wrong about the importance of specialized expertise, and wrong about what clients actually wanted from their marketing partnerships. Her wrongness had been revealed not through any scheme I had devised, but through the natural consequences of her own decision to publicly destroy work that represented the future of regional marketing. The most elegant form of professional revenge is always the kind where your opponent defeats themselves through their own actions, while you simply step aside and let their poor judgment create the destruction they deserve. Sometimes the best response to workplace cruelty is just building something better somewhere else and letting natural consequences demonstrate who was actually right. Today, 18 months after watching my life's work get deleted in front of 37 colleagues, I'm running the Regional Strategy Division for one of the fastest-growing marketing agencies in the Midwest. Our success is built entirely on the principle that Victoria rejected, that innovative thinking and specialized expertise create competitive advantages that can't be replicated through traditional approaches or bureaucratic control. Every day, I work with clients who appreciate having their unique challenges understood, their regional opportunities identified, and their authentic values translated into effective marketing strategies. And every day I'm reminded that the best response to people who undervalue your contributions is simply proving them wrong through continued success and professional growth. Victoria thought she was deleting unauthorized documentation when she destroyed the Heartland Project. What she actually deleted was the foundation of competitive advantage that could have secured her department's future and established her agency as an industry leader. Sometimes the most satisfying revenge is just allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their own terrible decisions while you build something extraordinary somewhere else. This story isn't just about workplace revenge. It's about the deeper truth that authentic value always finds a way to be recognized, even when those closest to us fail to see it. Victoria's cruelty wasn't just about controlling my work. It was about her own fear of being surpassed by someone she was supposed to mentor. Her destruction of my project wasn't really about company protocols. It was about her inability to recognize that leadership means nurturing talent, not crushing it. The saddest part of this entire experience wasn't losing 18 months of work. It was watching someone with real authority choose destruction over development, control over collaboration, fear over growth. Victoria had the opportunity to champion innovation, to support creative thinking, and to build something remarkable with the team she supervised. Instead, she chose to protect her own position by diminishing others and ultimately lost everything she was trying to preserve. Here's my question for you to consider. When someone shows you who they really are through their treatment of others, do you believe them the first time, or do you wait for them to prove it repeatedly? And more importantly, when you're in a position of power over others, what kind of leader do you choose to become? If this story resonated with you, or if you've experienced similar workplace betrayals that ultimately led to better opportunities, I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. Please like this video if you enjoyed hearing how Victoria's cruelty became the catalyst for my greatest professional success. And subscribe for more stories about how authentic value always finds its way to recognition, even when the journey takes unexpected turns. Sometimes the people who try to destroy us actually end up showing us exactly where we belong.